Today I want to share an educational post that I found online, and basically this post is titled "People Must Go to School. Education is not optional." Right? So I want to basically share this post, and after this I want to talk about the power of education in South Africa. That's number one. I also want to talk about the reality and responsibility of education, and I want to also touch on what to study and why it matters, because you need to remember that we have high unemployment rates, and the youth today, most of the youth don't want to go to school. They want to hustle because they just want to make quick money. And most people who quote unquote hustle, they don't actually end up making money. So it would have been better if they had went to school, right? So today, let me just read the post to you. It says, poverty begins in the mind. That's why it frustrates me deeply when someone who happened to succeed in business without formal education turns around and discourages others from going to school. For South Africa to truly develop, we need more than just hustlers. We need visionary leaders, skilled professionals, and a competitive workforce that can hold its own on a global scale. We need educated businessmen and women who understand the economy and are equipped to grow it. If you still believe education is useless and that you can do better without it, you are in the wrong lane. Your business, it thrives because someone went to school and is earning enough to support your business. Your tools, machines, vehicles, smartphones, and even the internet all exist because educated people created them. So, no, never underestimate the power of education. Never discourage others from pursuing it, no matter how you got your start. Hustling is not a substitute for knowledge. It's a tool that works best with knowledge. Let's build a nation of thinkers, creators and innovators, not just survivors. Ignorance kills nations. Education builds them. So essentially what this post is saying is that, look, education has more benefits than hustling. With education, you kind of have a clear path on where your life is going, whereas with hustling you will have lows and highs, and odds are you will end up not even making enough money to sustain yourself. All right. Now, I would like to just start by touching on the power of education in South Africa. Right. And I would like to do this because I need people to understand why young people from less privileged families should always go to school here in South Africa. All right. You have to understand that here in South Africa, inequality runs deep and opportunities are not equally distributed. Education is one of the few tools that are powerful enough to change a person's life in this country. For young people growing up in households where money is tight, the idea of going to school every day might not feel like much of a privilege. Sometimes it feels like a burden, But the truth is, education is one of the most reliable ladders out of poverty that exist in this country. It doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is what you do with the chance to learn, right? And in communities where unemployment, poverty, and hopelessness are common, school can be a place of stability. It can be a safe space that opens your mind and reminds you that your story doesn't have to end where it began. Education gives young people a structure, It gives us a purpose and a reason to keep dreaming. And many South Africa's most successful leaders Most of our successful innovators and professionals, they started out in townships and rural villages or informal settlements, and the way that their life changed, it wasn't luck, it was their commitment to education. They took education seriously because they understood that education gives you something no one can take away from you, right? Which is knowledge. And knowledge, when used wisely, will become power. The power to make informed decisions, to question injustice, to create opportunities, and to lift yourself and your family out of struggle, out of poverty. And remember that South Africa is an unequal society, and in a society that's as unequal as South Africa's, where the gap between the rich and the poor is among the widest in the world, education levels are not as high as we would like to be. But if we can increase them, right, education will kind of just level the playing field. It will level the playing field, and a lot of people who are poor, they will be able to climb up the socio-economic ladder easily. But for that to happen, young people must see school as more than just a place to pass time or to get a certificate. It should be seen as a gateway to freedom, financial freedom from dependency, freedom from poverty and from being controlled by your circumstances. And schooling is not just about getting grades. It's about building habits of discipline, curiosity, and perseverance that will serve you for life. And you have to understand that the harsh truth is that people who are born into wealth already have access to networks, resources, and safety nets, so they don't have to worry about education as much as people who are not born into money, right? And that's why if you're not born into money, you should just emphasize on your education. You should go to school and you should ensure that you study that professional degree that will set you up for life, right? And I need people to also understand that in South Africa, millions of young people still drop out of school before matric. Imagine, before matric. And they do so because not because they lack potential, no, but because life gets in the way, hunger, family responsibilities, your peer pressure, or just losing faith in education, right? But people who manage to push through, even in the toughest circumstances, they often find their persistence paying off later in life. They end up becoming your doctors, your engineers, and they end up having like a financially stable, financially secure life, all because they persevered through education. You have to understand that the path of education is really easy for the underprivileged, and some learners, they walk kilometers to school every day. They study by candlelight because they don't have electricity. They face teachers who are underpaid and overworked, teachers who sometimes don't give their best in school because of the conditions they are forced into, right? Now, you also have to know that for every child sitting in a classroom in Soweto, in Limpopo, or in Khayelitsha or Mthatha, they carry a story. Some of them live in homes without internet, some of them live in homes without electricity, some of them live in home, actually let me not say some, many of them live in homes without a stable income. But through education, they can transform their lives. In South Africa, jobs are scarce, yes, especially for unskilled workers. The difference between having a matric and not having one is massive. It's massive. And those who don't finish school often find themselves stuck in a casual labor dependent on others. And again, the difference between just having a matric certificate and having an undergraduate qualification, it's also massive. If you have an undergraduate qualification, you are most likely to get higher paying roles, right? However, education is more than just means to employment. It also builds confidence. It builds identity and awareness. It teaches young people to think critically, to challenge what's wrong and to imagine what could be better. Right. Young South Africans must understand that education is a responsibility as much as it is a right. The country invests heavily in public schooling, and every learner has a duty to make that investment count. Not only for themselves, but also for their communities. When one young person succeeds academically, they inspire a lot of other young people to believe that they can also achieve what they have achieved. And education is just overall it spreads hope, right? Now, before I close off, I just want to touch off on what to study and why it matters, right? Actually, let me start on why it matters. If you don't study the right qualification, odds are 20 years from now or 25 years from now, you will be unemployed or you will be a low earning worker in South Africa, right? And you will most likely have kids. And when your kids go out in public, they will be saying, I come from a disadvantaged background. And that time, that disadvantaged background, it will be you, because you chose to not study what actually matters, right? So that's why right now I'm going to tell you what people should look forward to studying, right? It doesn't guarantee employment, but it increases chances of employment in South Africa and across the world, right? So this question is, what should I study? And this question matters because not all fields lead to the same opportunities. In today's South Africa, unemployment is high, and if you choose the right area of study, it will benefit you in the long run, because the key is to balance passion with practicality. You should always study something that you care about, but it should also lead you somewhere. The economy is shifting towards sectors that demand skilled, adaptable people, and here are some key areas that young people should consider. The first one is technology and digital skills, because the world is moving fast towards digital transformation. It's moving fast towards coding, data science, cybersecurity, information technology, and these careers are the backbone of the modern economy. So if you learn how to work with computers and technology, you can actually open a lot of doors locally and internationally, right? And the second sector is engineering and infrastructure. The third sector is healthcare. And then the fourth sector that people should focus on is education. The fifth sector is business and entrepreneurship. The sixth one is finance, right? And last but not least, law, right? So the few degrees that I would actually vouch for people to study if they want to increase their employability are I'll begin with computer science. If you do computer science, you can become a software engineer, you can become a cybersecurity specialist, you can go into cloud computing. You will have access to a lot of jobs that are available in our economy, right? You can also do data sciences, which will be beneficial, and you can also do information technology, right? And again, I would say people should also gravitate towards engineering, because that engineering has always been one of the most in-demand skills required in the history of mankind. So you should also focus on engineering, and furthermore, you should also gravitate your focus towards healthcare, medical degrees and nursing qualifications. You should focus on those. You should also focus on teaching qualifications, because at the end of the day, we'll still need teachers. And one thing about the education qualification is that it has proven time and time over and over again that if you are from a poor background, by being a teacher, you can transform your entire family and turn your entire family into a middle class family, right? And then again, we have finance. In finance, I would like to say people should focus on finance, in general. They should also focus on accounting. We need more chartered accountants in South Africa, so we need more accountants. They should also focus on actuarial sciences. We need more people in that department too. And people should also focus on law too. So to conclude this video, education is extremely important, and people shouldn't neglect education. They should never neglect education, and they should take it seriously. So if you disagree with me on this video, comment down below why you disagree with me, and if you agree with me, also comment down below, leave a like, and also don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because we will be focusing more on education and how people can transform their lives through education, and why people should actually be invested in their education. So like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, I will catch each other again in the next video. And always remember, school is cool.